Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The promotion they announced on Monday? It had my fingerprints all over it, but Maya's name slapped on top like a stolen label. We've been desk neighbors for 5 years. Coffee runs, stupid memes, the whole sister in the trenches thing. I covered her when her train was late. She covered me when my Wi-Fi died mid-presentation. We weren't just colleagues. We were a rhythm. I'm Lena, brand strategist in our London office, U.S. headquarters, breathing down our necks from New York. Last quarter, I ran the Aurora launch, research, segmentation, creative brief, the deck, the analytics. Maya helped with stakeholder emails and kept the room warm, which she's amazing at. She's got that sunshine voice people want to agree with. Me? I'm the person who names the storm and steers the ship. Anyway, 2 weeks before the announcement, Maya started asking for backup copies of my models. In case your laptop freaks out again, she said. I didn't think twice. I zipped everything, dropped it in our shared drive, and went back to polishing the forecast slide everybody dreads. Then Monday hits. Slack explodes. All hands, 9:30. HR pops up with pastries nobody touches. The CEO joins on a choppy Zoom from JFK, congratulates our new marketing lead for EMEA. Confetti gifts are still echoing in the channel when the slide changes. Maya Bell, marketing lead. I swear my face didn't move, but my stomach did a cliff dive. What would you do if your best friend's name appeared on the promotion that was meant for you? On the next slide, the Aurora results, my tables, my callouts, my dumb little salmon-colored annotation boxes, her voice, presenting it like she'd slept on those spreadsheets for months, and everyone nodding, because why wouldn't they? It sounded clean. It looked inevitable. She hugged me after, real tight, whispered, "You know I love you, it just lined up this way." I felt the pin slide in, quiet click. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe if you want to hear how I finally stood up for myself. I didn't make a scene. I took my sad pastry, went back to my desk, and opened the version history. If you've ever stared at a timeline long enough, you know it starts talking. Edits, downloads, renames. Tiny breadcrumbs with dates. There it was. 2 late-night pulls from my private folder, right after I told her I was turning in early. If you uncovered proof that your closest friend had stolen your work, would you confront her right away, or wait for the perfect moment? You think I cried? I didn't. I made a list. Step 1, gather copies, screenshots, timestamps. Step 2, freeze the repo links. Step 3, breathe. Step 4, smile like nothing's wrong. That afternoon, she pinged me. Drinks to celebrate? Your spot? I typed, wouldn't miss it, because I wasn't planning to. At 6:45, I walked into our usual bar off Tottenham Court Road. Low lights, leather booths, that bartender who remembers our orders. Maya arrived in a white blazer, the kind people wear when they want the room to reflect more light back at them. She grinned, radiant. "To us," she said, clinking my glass. "To us," I said, because technically, I wasn't gone yet. She kept talking like she'd just won the Super Bowl. Can you believe it? Lead at 27. I mean, yeah, it's EMEA, not global, but still, biggest step of my life. I nodded, like the best friend who'd cheer till her throat burned. Inside, though, my brain was laying out blueprints. Revenge isn't rage, not if you want it to sting. It's patience, it's math. You'll kill it, I told her, and she believed me. Why wouldn't she? I'd spent years being her net, catching what slipped. Halfway through her gin and tonic, she leaned across the table. You're still my person, right? No weird feelings? I laughed. Come on, you think a title's gonna mess with this? I even raised my glass. She exhaled, relieved. That's the thing about betrayers. They expect the bang, not the silence. By Friday, she was decorating her new desk, moving plants and framed photos into the corner office we used to joke about. People paraded in with congrats cards and overpriced macarons. I brought her a latte, extra shot, oat milk, exactly how she liked it. Her smile was so wide it almost split her. God, Lena, what would I do without you? Funny question. That weekend I booked a quiet Airbnb near Brighton, dragged my laptop and opened every single file. I cross-checked metadata, version saves, timestamps. Everything whispered the same story. The Aurora campaign lived in my folders first, and Maya's fingers copied it line for line. I built a neat binder, digital and physical, dates, screenshots, email threads where she asked for just one more quick export. The kind of thing HR drools over when they're forced to care. But here's the twist. I didn't march straight to HR. That's too clean, too quick. No, I wanted her to shine brighter first. The taller the ladder, the harder the fall. So I waited, smiled, helped her polish her first strategy meeting. She thought we were still co-pilots, that our rhythm was intact. But while she rehearsed her slides, I was rehearsing the moment I'd pull the floorboards from under her heels. And trust me, those heels were sharp. The big day came 2 weeks later, quarterly review, whole C-suite present. Maya was buzzing like a live wire, pacing, lipstick perfect. Stay close, she whispered. I might need you to jump in on some numbers. Always, I said. She walked up there glowing, clicked through slides I knew by heart. And then, perfect timing, the projector stuttered. Lag, glitch, then desktop flash. For half a second, the folder tree appeared. Guess whose name was on the file history? Not hers. If the truth accidentally flashed in front of everyone, would you step in, or let silence do the talking? A murmur rippled. She scrambled, clicking back, cheeks flushing under the spotlight. But seeds don't need water when they're already cracked open. Eyes shifted. Whispers started. And I just sat there, calm as a still lake, sipping lukewarm coffee. After the meeting, she cornered me in the ladies' room, lipstick smudged, hands shaking like she'd downed 3 espressos. What the hell was that? Did you see the screen glitch? They're gonna think. They're not gonna think. I cut in, voice low, steady. They already do. Her eyes darted, searching my face for mercy. I gave her none. You wouldn't, she whispered. I almost laughed. Wouldn't what? Save you? Or wouldn't let you choke on what you stole? She slammed her palm against the sink. Lena, come on, we're friends. I leaned in, close enough to see the mascara flecks under her lashes. Friends don't raid each other's hard drives at 2 a.m. She froze. That was it. The confirmation I needed. Guilt slipped through her silence like smoke. I left her there, shaking, and went back to my desk. My inbox already had 3 messages. One from HR asking for a quick chat, one from the CFO with nothing but a question mark, and one from Maya herself. Please don't ruin me. That night I couldn't sleep. The city buzzed outside, neon streaks across rain-soaked glass, but my head was louder. This was the fork. Burn her now, or let her dangle. I chose dangle. So the next week, I kept my mask on, helped her prep for board Q&As, fixed her formulas, even cracked jokes like old times. Every smile she gave me was stitched with fear. That's the sweetest thread, when they can't tell if you're savior or executioner. Friday rolled in. Company happy hour at a rooftop bar. Music, overpriced cocktails, the usual schmooze fest. Maya showed up late, tried to carry herself tall, but I saw the wobble in her step. The CEO raised a glass. To Maya for leading the Aurora campaign to record growth. Cheers exploded. Everyone clinked. I clinked too. She lifted her drink with trembling hands. And that's when the projector lit up the side wall. A surprise highlight reel, marketing wins of the quarter. Guess whose name was plastered under lead strategist on the Aurora files? Mine. Because guess who fed the comms team the right version, the real version, with my metadata intact? Silence hit first, then the whispers. Someone actually gasped, like a soap opera cutscene. Maya's face drained, glass half raised, caught mid-smile. Would you have let her crumble in silence, or delivered the final blow yourself? I didn't say a word, just watched as her spotlight fizzled out, replaced by the unmistakable glare of suspicion. Revenge doesn't need noise. Sometimes, it's just letting the truth walk into the room uninvited. The rooftop buzz flipped fast. A minute ago, everyone was cheering Maya. Now it was that weird hush where nobody wants to be the first to ask. Wait, did she actually? The CEO's brow furrowed. Interesting. I thought... He didn't finish. He didn't need to. His eyes moved from me to Maya and back again like a judge weighing evidence. Maya forced a laugh. Oh, must be a mix-up, haha, you know how file names can. But her voice cracked halfway through. Everyone heard it. I sipped my drink, let the night air fill my lungs. I didn't need to add a word. Silence was louder. Monday morning, HR summoned us both. Beige conference room, stale coffee smell, blinds half open. Maya looked wrecked, blazer wrinkled, hair pulled back in a rush. I wore navy, neat, calm. The HR manager cleared her throat. We've been reviewing documentation regarding the Aurora campaign. She slid a folder across the table. My folder, neat tabs, screenshots, metadata. Lena, you'll be pleased to know we've confirmed authorship. Maya's jaw dropped. She set me up. She's been plotting this. I leaned back. Plotting? You asked me for files. I shared them. That's collaboration. But what you did after, that's called appropriation. HR scribbled notes. The manager's tone stayed neutral, but her pen scratched harder when Maya spoke. That's how you know which way the wind blows. By the end of the hour, Maya was, quote, suspended pending investigation. Corporate speak for pack your desk. Don't expect a comeback. I walked past her empty office that afternoon. Plants still there, photo frames face down. One of the interns was boxing her stuff. Her white blazer hung on the chair like a ghost. Did I feel guilty? Honestly, no. Betrayal doesn't earn sympathy. It earns receipts. That night, Maya texted me, "You destroyed me. Happy now?" I stared at it, thumb hovering. Then I typed back, "No. I just stopped you from destroying me." Sent. Blocked. Done. 2 weeks later, the CEO called me in. "We need stability," he said. "And frankly, you should have had the lead from the start. Let's correct that mistake." He slid the new contract across the desk. My name, my title, finally official. I didn't smile. I just signed. Because here's the thing. Victory isn't the loud cheer. It's the quiet pen stroke after the storm. And in that silence, I finally breathed free. First week, wearing that new title, I felt eyes on me everywhere. Some curious, some jealous, some just relieved the drama had a clear ending. Offices run on gossip like cars run on fuel. Everyone wanted the inside scoop. Crazy how it all flipped, huh? A guy from finance whispered at the espresso machine. Yeah, I said, stirring sugar I didn't need. Crazy. They wanted details, dirt, tears. I gave them nothing. Truth had already done its job. Maya didn't vanish overnight. Rumor was she tried calling upper management, hinting at legal threats. But companies like ours don't gamble with scandal. HR had the files, the timestamps, the proof. She was out, clean cut. Still, part of me wondered if she'd resurface somewhere else, spin a new version of the story. That's the thing with liars. They never see themselves as the villain, just the misunderstood lead of their own script. I kept my focus on the work. Late nights, tight deadlines, new hires to mentor. Every win I stacked was another nail sealing the box on her betrayal. Friday came with the quarterly mixer, champagne flutes, jazz trio in the corner, skyline glittering through tall windows. I stood with a cluster of execs, laughing at a bad joke, when someone tapped my shoulder. It wasn't Maya. But it was her shadow. Her best friend from HR days, glass in hand, eyes sharp. You really played her, she said. Not accusation exactly, not praise either. I met her gaze. She played herself. I just didn't cover for her. The woman tilted her glass, half smile, cold. Then she walked away. I let out a breath. Cold? Maybe. But in this city, in this industry, Warmth doesn't save you, receipts do. Later that night, I stood on the balcony alone, watching headlights blur below. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "You'll never outrun me. Watch your back." I didn't reply. I just deleted it, turned off the screen, and slipped the phone in my bag. Because threats are only loud when the speaker's already lost the stage. And Maya? She'd been written out. Monday hit with rain and a calendar stacked like Tetris. I buried myself in kickoffs, vendor calls, the new analyst who kept saying circa like we were in a museum. Work has a way of rinsing drama when you let it. Still, I tightened my borders. Two-factor on everything. Private folders locked down. I set naming conventions so annoying no thief would bother. Paranoid? Maybe. But paranoia's just experience with better lighting. At lunch, Jess from design slid into the booth across from me. "You okay?" "I'm effective," I said, and stole one of her fries. "That counts." She studied me. "You know she's going to try a comeback somewhere." "She will," I said. "And somewhere, someone will ask the same question she hoped we'd never ask." Jess nodded. "Want me to scrub social mentions tied to Aurora?" "I can redirect press queries to comms." "Do it," I said, quietly. End of day, the CEO called a town hall. New ethics policy, cleaner workflows, tighter permissions. He didn't say Maya's name, but the outline fit like a tailored suit. People asked careful questions, I gave careful answers. When it ended, he pulled me aside. "I want you leading a cross-office training, real talk, not the HR slide deck." "Straight talk?" I said. "I can do that." "Good, keep the edges." I walked out with a weird calm. Not triumph, not relief. Something steadier, like a door had shut and the hallway finally stopped echoing. On Wednesday, I took the late train to Brighton and stood on the pebbles till my feet ached through my sneakers. Wind tasted like salt and electricity. I let the tide drag the week out of my head. Maya taught me something I didn't know I needed. Guard the work and guard the circle. Trust isn't free. It's a subscription. You renew it by behavior. The next month blurred. Conferences, strategy decks, back-to-back meetings that felt like speed dating with spreadsheets. I barely had time to breathe, but weirdly, that was the point. Busy keeps ghosts quiet. Still, Maya lingered like smoke. People whispered. A recruiter pinged me on LinkedIn. "Did you really take down your best friend for a promotion?" I ignored it, but it stayed lodged under my skin. At a client dinner in Paris, a partner leaned in over his wine. "Tell me, Lena, you're brilliant, but can you play nice?" I smiled, teeth sharp. "Depends how you define nice." He laughed too loud, but his eyes said he'd file the answer away. Back in London, a brown envelope landed on my desk. No stamp, just slid under the door. Inside, a USB stick. Handwritten note. "Thought you'd want to see this." My pulse spiked. I locked my office door, plugged it in. Folder popped up. Recordings. Grainy, late-night Zooms. Maya's voice, clear as day, bragging to some faceless contact about outmaneuvering that clueless friend of mine. Dates lined up with the campaign prep. Proof stacked on proof. Redundant, almost theatrical. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Who sent it? An ally? A ghost? Didn't matter. What mattered was that Maya had left a trail even she couldn't bury. I didn't hand it to HR. Didn't need to. I archived it, encrypted, labeled. Insurance. Because in this business, you don't just beat the villain once. You keep the receipts in triplicate. That Friday, I caught myself laughing with Jess over sushi, almost normal. She raised her glass. To clean slates. I clinked. Nah, to sharper pencils. And for the first time in months, the laugh didn't feel borrowed. 2 months later, I flew to Berlin for Brand Week, the kind of conference where badges are currency and everyone lies about sleep. Jess came too, because she's lethal with a color wheel and calmer than chamomile. We landed to gray skies and a schedule that looked like punishment. My panel was Wednesday, data with teeth. I'd prepped slick demos, real stories, the kind of thing that makes execs put their phones face down. An hour before go time, a push alert lit my screen. Maya Bell joins North Arc as VP to rebuild trust. Cute line, PR people earn their money. Breathe, Jess said. I'm breathing, I said, even if it sounded like a dare. We walked backstage. The moderator hustled over with a clipboard and eyes too bright. Just a heads up, she whispered. North Arc asked to add a respondent to your session. She'll give a contrasting perspective. Jess and I didn't have to ask who. Maya stepped out from behind the curtain wearing a wine-red suit and a smile polished like glass. Lena, she said, as if the name tasted bitter and she liked it anyway. Congrats on the new badge, I said. She leaned in. Try not to choke when the Q&A starts. I didn't blink. Try not to plagiarize when the oxygen gets thin. We took our seats. Lights went hot. The room quieted. I did my talk, crisp and clean, no fluff. People leaned forward. Then the moderator turned to Maya. Thoughts? Maya spread her hands. Lena's talented. She's also territorial. Good leaders share. The crowd shifted. That word, territorial, slips under skin. I smiled, not sweet. I share plenty. I just like my name on my work. A guy in row 3 raised a hand. So who led Aurora? Maya opened her mouth. I clicked the remote. The screen changed to a single slide. The audit trail, cropped tight. Names and timestamps lined up like marching orders. A few gasps, one slow whistle, then silence again. I turned back to the moderator. Data with teeth, this is the bite. Maya's smile cracked a millimeter. She recovered fast, said something about, quote, legacy processes, but the energy had flipped. Afterward, people swarmed me with cards and real questions. Jess handed me water and a look that said, done and dusted. Out in the cold, Berlin smelled like diesel and gingerbread. I finally laughed. Rebuild trust, I said. Sure, start by not torching it. Back in London, the buzz from Berlin lasted longer than the jet lag. My inbox turned into a parade of calendars and curious invites. A few were fluff. A few were knives wrapped in velvet. I kept the ones with teeth. Jess dropped a croissant on my desk and leaned on the doorframe. So, VP Bell? Rebrand Bell, I said. She'll keep repainting the same wall. By noon, a North Arc address pinged me, anonymous at subject line, for your records. Inside was a PDF internal memo from Maya's team, quoting Lena's Aurora framework as industry baseline. No credit, just brazen recycling. I didn't rage. I filed it, added a date, and went back to work. Here's what shifting out of survival mode feels like. Your shoulders remember they're attached to a spine. I started the ethics sessions the CEO wanted. No sanctimony, just war stories, actual steps. Lock your docs, share on purpose. Leave trails you're proud to show in court. People showed up, engineers, new grads. A cynical PM who grumbled then took 3 pages of notes. After class, a kid named Noor asked if mentorship was a thing here. It wasn't. I made it one. Wednesday night, we held the first circle in a borrowed conference room. No slides, just chairs and tea. Folks traded dumb mistakes and small wins. It felt like a firewall made out of people. Maya, meanwhile, posted a LinkedIn essay about women tearing down women. Comments went feral. I didn't bite. I let the algorithm eat its own tail. 2 weeks later, a trade blog asked for my take on attribution culture. I kept it simple. Give credit fast. Guard your process. Build a long memory. The piece did numbers. Recruiters crawled out again. I ignored them, mostly. Look, I'm not chasing a crusade. I'm just not handing the keys to every smiling thief at the door. That's not cold. That's maintenance. Spring rolled in late, London drizzle refusing to quit, but I'd stopped noticing. Work was full, life was layered, and the whole Maya saga felt like a scar. Still visible, no longer raw. One Thursday, I ducked into a cafe near Shoreditch between meetings. Place smelled like cardamom and burnt beans, the tables all carved with initials. I opened my laptop, ready to drown in slides, when someone slid into the seat across from me. Maya, hair darker, coat expensive, eyes carrying both fight and fatigue. Don't freak, she said. I just wanted 5 minutes. I almost laughed. 5 minutes or 5 years? She flinched. I messed up, Lena. I thought I could outpace you. I thought the game was speed, not credit. And yeah, I tanked my own career. She toyed with her spoon. But you never missed a step. You won. I sipped my coffee, bitter and sharp. It wasn't about winning. It was about keeping what was mine. For a second, she looked like the old Maya, the friend who knew my coffee order, who once cried in the office bathroom after bombing a pitch and let me fix her eyeliner. Then the moment passed. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. Just maybe someday you'll remember we were good once. She left before I answered. I stared at the empty chair, steam curling from her untouched tea. Did I feel lighter? Not exactly, but I felt finished. Later that night, Jess texted, "Drinks?" I wrote back, "Yeah." This time, we celebrate without ghosts. I closed my laptop, walked out into the drizzle. Neon blurred on the pavement, cabs honked, the city kept moving. And for the first time in a long stretch, I let myself move with it. Because revenge isn't just about payback. It's about building a life where you don't need it anymore. Summer hit and the office shifted. Windows cracked, fans buzzing, iced lattes sweating rings onto desks. I'd settled into the role like it was tailored, not borrowed. No more whispering about how she got here. The work spoke. Clients stayed. Numbers rose. At lunch, the interns swarmed me with questions. How do you handle people stealing your ideas? One asked, too direct to be British. I grinned. First rule, don't assume the thief is smarter. Second, leave a trail so loud it can't be ignored. They scribbled like I'd handed them a secret spell. Maybe I had. One evening, I joined Jess at a gallery opening in Soho. Loud art, louder wine. We drifted between canvases when a guy in tortoiseshell glasses said, "You're Lena from the Berlin panel, right? The Aurora one?" I nodded. He smirked. "You embarrassed Northark's new VP classic." Jess jumped in. She didn't embarrass anyone. She just told the truth with better slides. I just smiled, because sometimes silence still does the work. On the walk home, Jess asked, "You ever think you'll stop being defined by what happened?" "Probably not," I said. "But I can be defined by what came after." Streetlights blinked, taxis splashed by, and I felt that odd weightless thing, like turning a page and realizing the next one isn't blank, just waiting. That night, I drafted a new deck, not for clients, for myself. First slide, guard your work, guard your people, let the rest burn itself out. I closed the laptop, poured a glass of water, and leaned out the window to feel the city hum. No revenge, no ghosts, just momentum. By autumn, the office was buzzing with reorg rumors. New markets, new budgets, maybe even new leadership. Everyone circled like seagulls over chips, waiting to see where the scraps would fall. I didn't flinch. After Berlin, after Maya, I'd learned not to chase noise. My work was visible, my receipts stacked, my circle tight. Whatever came next, I wasn't scrambling. One Tuesday, the CEO stopped by my desk, rare, since he usually lived 3 floors up. "Board wants fresh blood and strategy. You up for a stretch?" "Depends," I said, clicking my pen closed. "Stretch or strangle?" He laughed, clapped my shoulder. "Stretch! Global role, think about it." I thought about it on the tube ride home, the air thick with end-of-day sweat and bad perfume. A year ago, I would have killed for that nod. Now, it felt optional. Like power was something I could choose, not beg for. That weekend, I met Jess in Hyde Park, leaves gone copper, air sharp. She threw me a pretzel, said, "So you're going global?" "Maybe," I said. "You sound bored already." I shrugged. "Not bored. Just not hungry in the same way." She tilted her head. "That's growth. Or trauma." "Probably both." We laughed till pigeons scattered. Sunday night, I opened a blank doc. Instead of prepping pitch slides, I wrote a list. People I trusted, projects I was proud of, risks worth taking. No titles, no ladder, just a map of what mattered. And for the first time in years, the page didn't look like a battlefield. It looked like a horizon. Global role or not, life in London kept its rhythm. Mornings started with flat whites, evenings with trains rattling under neon. My name carried weight now, not just in the office but at industry panels, on LinkedIn posts I didn't even write. People quoted me in meetings I wasn't in. Strange currency, reputation, you don't notice it until it spends itself. One afternoon, I got an email from a professor at King's College. Would you guest lecture on brand ethics? I almost deleted it. Imposter syndrome never really leaves. But then I thought, why not? Lecture day, I stood in front of 50 students. Most were scrolling, half asleep. I told them stories instead of frameworks. The Aurora campaign. The stolen files. The receipts. Their screens went dark, one by one. Pens scratched. At the end, a student with cobalt hair asked, "If your friend hadn't betrayed you, would you be here?" I paused. Maybe not. Maybe I'd still be in the corner, grinding. Betrayal shoved me into the light. Didn't choose it, but I chose what to do with it. They clapped. Real, not polite. For a second, I felt something I hadn't in months. Gratitude, twisted, and raw, but there. Later that night, Jess and I grabbed ramen. She slurped noodles, pointed chopsticks at me. You realize you've turned your revenge story into a syllabus? I smirked. Better than a sob story. She raised her bowl. To survival turned curriculum. We clinked ceramic like it mattered. Back home, I lit a candle, opened my window, and let the city noise roll in. Revenge had been fuel. But now? Now it was just ink dried on a chapter I didn't need to reread. Winter rolled over the city, damp and bone deep. Office halls smelled like pine from overworked diffusers, every desk littered with holiday biscuits. I was still weighing the global offer, but my gut told me not to grab it just because it sparkled. At the holiday party, sequins everywhere, cheap champagne flowing, the CFO cornered me. "So, Lena, word is you're holding out, playing hard to get?" I grinned. "Just deciding if the ladder leans against the right wall." He barked a laugh, muttered something about philosophers and marketing, and wandered off. Jess elbowed me. "You're ridiculous." "Or sane," I said. Later, on the terrace, breath fogging in the cold, I got a text from an unknown number. "She's burning bridges at North Arc. Thought you'd want to know." Attached was a screenshot. Maya, mid-meeting, shouting at her team, transcript notes showing her unraveling. I showed Jess. She rolled her eyes. "Receipts keep falling into your lap." "Yeah," I said. "Funny thing is, I don't even want them anymore." And that was true. I didn't need proof, didn't need to watch her collapse. Her story wasn't mine to finish. Christmas week, I flew to Boston to see my brother. Snow piled on brownstones, air sharp enough to sting your teeth. He poured me bourbon, asked about work, asked if I was finally winning. I told him the truth. I'm not playing to win anymore. I'm just writing my own rules. He raised his glass. "That's winning, sis." We clinked, snow tapping against the window. For the first time, the word revenge felt like a past tense verb, a shadow in the rear view, not a compass pointing forward. January started with rain slicking every pavement and resolutions scribbled on office whiteboards that wouldn't last a week. Mine wasn't written down. It was simple. Stop running on spite, start running on choice. Back at my desk, I stared at the global contract still sitting in my inbox. HR had gentle reminders, stacked like postcards. I finally replied, "Let's talk scope." Not a yes, not a no, just terms on my own clock. That afternoon, Jess swung by with 2 coffees. "Heard you're negotiating with the mothership." I shrugged. "More like deciding if I want their weather system." She grinned. "You love the storm." Maybe I did, but this time I'd carry my own umbrella. End of the month, I flew to New York for board talks. Skyscrapers carved the sky. Streets hummed with cabs and steam vents. In the glass tower lobby, I spotted a familiar silhouette. Maya. Different company badge, same posture, smile glued on. She saw me too. For a beat, we just stood there, ghosts colliding in daylight. Then she walked past without a word. Strangely, I felt nothing. No spike of anger, no thrill of vengeance. Just absence. Like a book you once couldn't put down, now gathering dust. That night, I sat in a hotel room, 29 floors up, city buzzing beneath me. I poured tea, opened my laptop, and drafted a new deck. Not for work, not for proof, for me. Slide 1. Build, don't beg, protect, don't hoard, share with care. Slide 2. The best revenge is forgetting you needed any. I closed the lid, breathed in the skyline, and realized the story wasn't about Maya anymore. It was about me, standing tall without her shadow. Back in London, February felt like wet concrete, heavy, clinging, trying to slow everything down. I leaned into routine. Pre-dawn runs along the canal, podcasts I never finish, eggs on toast, then office. The ethics circle kept growing. We moved it to a bigger room, switched the tea for pizza, and renamed it Clean Hands. Corny, I know, but people showed. They brought stories that sounded too small to matter and turned enormous once said out loud. A junior copywriter confessed he'd been ghost editing a director's memos. An engineer admitted she'd shipped a fix under her manager's name because he promised to, quote, credit the team later. We traced lines, we practiced emails, we wrote scripts for saying no without making lifelong enemies. One night after a session, Noor lingered. I've got an idea, she said, cheeks pink from nerves. A public repo of best practices, but with receipts. Template language, permission settings, timestamp how-tos. Nothing preachy, just practical. I smiled. Ship it. We built it in a week. Legal blessed the safe bits. Comms polished the copy. And suddenly, other offices were cloning our framework. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Fewer panicked slacks. Cleaner handoffs. People sleeping better because their work didn't feel like a loose wallet. Meanwhile, HR finally pressed for my answer on the global role. I asked for 2 things. Authority over process, not just decks, and budget for mentorship stipends, so care wasn't unpaid labor. They blinked, recalibrated, then said they'd revisit compensation architecture. Translation, they'd try. Jess rolled her chair to my desk. You're turning a shiny title into a systems job. Titles fade, I said. Systems stick. She bumped my shoulder. You're getting insufferable. Efficient, I said. Insufferably efficient. At home, I watered my stubborn basil, scrolled past Maya's latest think piece, and finally put my phone face down. I didn't need the noise. The work had teeth. The life didn't need claws. Spring crept in soft this time. Longer light, daffodils fighting through city grime, commuters trading scarves for sunglasses. My own pace shifted too. Less adrenaline, more balance. The global role talks dragged on. I wasn't rushing them. Power feels different when you're not starving for it. You can actually taste it, weigh it, send it back if it's undercooked. Meanwhile, Clean Hands kept scaling. Other offices dialed in, interns ran their own spin-offs, and suddenly, HR was bragging about our initiative like it was theirs. Fine by me. Impact is impact, credit optional, as long as it sticks. One afternoon, a package showed up at reception. No sender. Inside, a book. Cover torn. Pages dog-eared. On the first blank page, scribbled in black ink, we're even. M. Maya's handwriting, no question. I flipped through her old notebook, the one she used to carry everywhere. Meeting notes, doodles, half-baked campaign slogans. On one page, in bold, underlined letters, Lena will always outwork me. I sat there in the break room, fluorescent lights buzzing, just staring at it. Jess peeked over. That from her? Yeah. Creepy? A little, but also finished. I slid the notebook into a drawer, not a trophy, not a curse, just a relic, proof that the fire had burned, and what was left was ash. That weekend, I took the train to Brighton again, stood on the pebbled shore, wind smacking salt against my face. I thought about all the nights I'd lost sleep over Betrayal, all the energy I'd wasted plotting comebacks. And then I laughed. Really laughed. Because here I was, still standing, work intact, circle tighter, horizon wide. Revenge hadn't ruined me, it had rerouted me. May brought conferences, contract rewrites, and the kind of sunlight that tricks Londoners into picnicking on damp grass. I'd stopped checking for Maya in every industry headline. She was still out there, sure, but not in my orbit anymore. One night after a long day, Jess dragged me to a rooftop bar near Shoreditch. String lights, cheap Prosecco, someone's bad playlist. She leaned on the railing, hair whipping in the wind. You ever think about what you'd do if she walked in right now? I didn't even pause. Order another drink. That's it. Jess grinned. Progress. The global offer finally hit my desk, shiny and official. Salary, perks, power, all the trimmings. I read it twice, then a third time, and still felt nothing. Not dread, not thrill, just a steady sense that I didn't need a new title to validate my spine. So I countered. Half the travel, double the mentorship budget, authority over ethics rollout. They balked, of course. But then they blinked, like maybe that was the deal they needed too. It struck me then, revenge had taught me leverage. Not how to burn people down, but how to hold my ground until the room shifted my way. That weekend, I hosted the Clean Hands crew at my flat. Pizza boxes, laptops, playlists, bouncing between indie and 90s, Pop Noir presented a prototype dashboard for tracking credit on projects. The interns argued about fonts. Jess spilled wine on my rug. It felt good, not dramatic, not vengeful, just community. Around midnight, as everyone drifted out, Noor said, "You know, none of this would exist if she hadn't betrayed you." I closed the door behind them, looked at the messy room, and whispered to myself, and that's the best twist of all. June showed up loud. Tourists clogging pavements, office AC fighting the sun, every meeting starting with small talk about beer gardens. I kept the negotiations humming. HR wanted my yes. I wanted the shape of the job, not just its shine. Titles are confetti. Authority is scaffolding. We met in a glass room where the Thames looked like tinfoil. "We can flex travel," the COO said, tapping his pen. "But the mentorship budget? Unusual." "Not unusual," I said. "Just overdue. You want clean handoffs and fewer fires? Pay for the fire breaks." He smiled like I'd told a joke. I didn't. Jess sat beside me, quiet muscle, flipping to the slide that turned my wish list into cost savings. You'd be surprised how ethical behavior gets cheaper when you stop improvising it. They asked for time. I gave them a week and not a second more. While they dithered, I flew to Dublin for a client rescue. The pitch had gone sideways. Confused metrics, overlapping teams, that smell of panic you can't mask with pastries. I ran a whiteboard session, cut 3 vanity KPIs, rewired the reporting ladder, and told the room, we credit the source in the deck footers, we track edits in the doc, we disagree on paper, not in whispers. Heads nodded, air changed, work got lighter. That night in the hotel, I opened Maya's old notebook, the one she'd mailed like a truce. The page with my name, it didn't hurt. It didn't thrill me either. It just sat there, proof I wasn't crazy, proof she'd known. I slid the book back into my bag and promised myself it would never ride shotgun with my choices. Back in London, HR blinked first. We'll fund mentorship stipends for pilot offices with a review in Q4. You'll have process authority, not just presentation sign-off. Travel capped at 40%. I read it twice, sipped cold coffee, then looked up. I want one more clause, I said, a public attribution policy. Clear, human, enforceable. Everyone signs it. Violations documented, consequences real. Silence. Paper rustled. Someone coughed. The COO leaned forward. You'll write it? I'll draft it. Legal will bless it. Leadership will own it. He weighed me for a long second. Deal. I didn't grin. I felt the floor settle. Jess and I walked out into heat that tasted like pennies. She bumped my shoulder. You just smuggled a backbone into the org chart. Not smuggled, I said. Installed. We celebrated with sticky buns on a curb, sugar dusting our suits. A bus whooshed by, a kid dropped a balloon. The city kept being ridiculous and alive. That weekend I slept, not the anxious doze that breaks at 3 a.m., but the kind with weight. When I woke, the air felt wider. I made eggs, watered the basil, texted my brother about Boston snow I was glad to miss in June. In the afternoon, Noor sent a prototype, Attribution Dashboard V2. Cleaner, friendlier. We should name it, she wrote. I typed back Ledger, and she pinged 3 fire emojis and a heart. Monday the rollout began. Memos, demos. Pushback. A few old guard managers acted like we were outlawing genius. Real creativity is messy, one said. Messy doesn't mean nameless, I said. Keep the mess. Add labels. By Friday, folks were quoting the policy back at me. Share on purpose. They said, like a mantra. I watched that phrase leave my mouth and land in other people's. It felt strange and good. On my way out, I saw a junior PM pin a printout to her wall. Good work survives sunlight. I didn't write that line, someone else did. Attribution, anonymous. Did it bother me? Honestly, no. The culture was tilting the right way. That was the point. And yeah, every so often a shadow crossed my mind. Maya at North Arc, spinning, sprinting, maybe learning, maybe not, but the shadow kept its distance. I didn't chase it. I had rooms to wire, names to protect, air to clear. Revenge had gotten me here, but it wasn't invited to the next meeting. July cooked the city. Pavement shimmered, office blinds couldn't block the glare, and ice machines became sacred ground. Still, momentum didn't melt. Ledger went live in 3 regions. Feedback poured in. Some praise, some grumbling, plenty of finally. One Thursday, an invite hit my inbox. Keynote, Amsterdam. Topic, Attribution as Culture. I almost declined. Then I remembered the girl who used to bury her name in footnotes, praying someone noticed. I hit accept. Amsterdam was bikes, canals, and conference halls colder than morgues. I stood on stage, lights hot, room packed, told the story without names. 2 colleagues, 1 betrayal, receipts that rewrote the rules. I didn't preach, I just showed scars turned scaffolding. Applause felt different now. Less adrenaline, more resonance. People weren't clapping for drama, they were clapping for recognition. They'd seen versions of Maya, they'd survived versions of me. Afterward, a woman from Copenhagen pulled me aside. We lost 3 designers last year, credit theft, burnout. If we'd had Ledger sooner. She trailed off, eyes wet. I squeezed her hand. You have it now. Later, walking by the canals, Jess teased, You're basically a brand ethics rock star. I laughed. Coolest oxymoron I've heard all week. We toasted with cheap beer, and for once the weight in my chest wasn't armor. It was pride. Back in London, I opened my drawer. Maya's notebook sat there, spine fraying. I flipped to the page with her confession. Lena will always outwork me. For the first time, I didn't feel anger or victory. Just closure. Do you think real strength comes from forgiving or from forgetting? I closed the notebook, slid it into a box, and taped it shut. Not a trophy, not a warning, just history. Because revenge had been the fuel, but legacy, that was the engine now. August blurred with travel. Frankfurt, Madrid, Stockholm. Each office had its quirks. Different pastries, different gripes. Same question under the surface. Can we trust each other here? I didn't bring glossy decks anymore. I brought stories. The Aurora mess, the glitch on the projector, the rooftop toast that turned into silence. People leaned in, not because I was special, but because they'd all been there in some shape. One engineer said, It's always the charming ones who steal credit. I shrugged. Charm isn't the enemy, silence is. that line stuck. I started seeing it scribbled on whiteboards in other cities. Mid-month, an email popped into my personal inbox. No subject line, just a link. Against my better judgment, I clicked. A news article. North Arc VP resigns amid allegations of misconduct. No name, but I didn't need one. I closed the tab, didn't send it to Jess, didn't mention it at all. Maya's story was hers now, not mine. Instead, I poured energy into Ledger. Noor launched V3 with auto-tagging. Jess designed a logo. Clean lines, no fluff. We printed stickers. Suddenly, laptops across offices had little icons. A ledger book with a lock. Culture, but portable. Friday night, we gathered at a pub, the whole motley crew. Noor raised a pint. 2 receipts, everyone laughed, clinking glasses. I raised mine too, but I added, to clean work, and to never needing revenge to keep it clean. The table went quiet for a beat, then cheers rolled in. Walking home, London warm and restless, I realized the story wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about what we built after it. And maybe that's the only revenge worth carrying, building something they can't break. September opened with drizzle and deadlines. The global contract was finally inked, stamped, filed, the kind of doc that used to make my stomach flip. This time, it just felt like confirmation of work already being done. At the signing, the COO shook my hand. Congrats, Lena. Big stage now. I smiled. Stages don't scare me anymore. Jess whispered afterward. Who even are you now? Someone with receipts, I said, and we cracked up loud enough to earn a glare from legal. Ledger spread faster than forecasted. Teams built rituals around it. Weekly credit rounds, Slack bots that flagged missing names, even memes. A meme about me holding a giant ledger book went semi-viral inside the company, embarrassing but effective. Students from King's invited me back for another lecture. This time, I didn't hesitate. I told them betrayal's not the end of the story, just the opening act. I told them revenge can spark change, but only if you let it evolve into something bigger. Afterward, a kid with shaky hands said, "So it's not about burning bridges?" "No," I said. "It's about building better ones with guardrails." He smiled like someone had handed him armor. One evening, Jess and I grabbed falafel wraps and sat by the Thames. Lights shimmered on the water, and for once I wasn't replaying old wounds in my head. "You ever think about her?" Jess asked. "Less and less," I said. And that was the truth. Maya was a ghost in another story. Mine was still being written, louder, cleaner, forward. I leaned back, watching the river swallow the city glow. Revenge had been a chapter. But legacy, that was the book. October carried that sharp chill that makes the city smell like smoke and damp leaves. I spent more time on trains than at home, hopping between offices, watching Ledger weave itself into routine. Not perfect. Nothing is, but enough that people started calling it culture instead of policy. That mattered. At a Warsaw workshop, a young analyst asked, "Do you ever regret not forgiving her?" I paused. The room leaned in. "Forgiveness isn't the currency here," I said. "Clarity is. I didn't need her absolution. I needed my name back. And once I had it, I moved on." They nodded, scribbled it down like gospel, but to me it wasn't holy. It was just lived. Back in London, Jess hosted a dinner in her tiny flat. Pasta, cheap wine, too many candles. She raised a glass. To Lena, who turned office politics into policy. I groaned. "Don't make it sound noble." "It is," she said. "You could have burned out, gone bitter. Instead you built something. That's rare." Noor chimed in, "You basically hacked revenge into a framework." We all laughed, but my chest tightened. In a good way, maybe they were right. Maybe spite had just been raw material, and I'd smelted it into steel. Later that night, walking home through cool air, I realized I hadn't checked Maya's name online in months. Didn't care if she resurfaced, didn't care if she vanished. That was her orbit. Mine was wider now. I stopped on a bridge, looking out at the city lights fractured on the river. For the first time, I didn't feel the old itch to prove anything. The proof was already breathing in the rooms we'd changed. and that was enough. November came in silver and blue, the kind of cold that makes you walk faster just to stay honest. I was headed to a small auditorium near Holborn, clutching a stack of notes I probably wouldn't use. Students, practitioners, a few skeptics with crossed arms, they'd all come to hear the long version. I gave it to them straight, not the gossip, not the glitter, just the steps. When the Q&A ended, a woman in a navy coat waited by the aisle, eyes steady. "I'm Anya," she said, North Arc. I felt the floor tilt, then settle. "We've adopted your policy, unofficially, credit's cleaner now, thought you should know." She didn't ask for anything, and didn't offer an apology. Just information, like a weather report. I nodded. "Good. Hold the line," I said, and meant it. That night, Jess and I walked home along the river, breath fogging between jokes. Boats knocked the embankment, slow and stubborn. "Do you ever miss the old version of you?" she asked. "The one who'd shrink to keep the peace?" "Sometimes," I said, "but she couldn't have built any of this." In late November, the board approved the attribution policy, full rollout, signatures required. We scheduled a day where every manager would stand in front of their teams and say the words out loud. Who gets credit? How we share? How we document? Not a miracle, but a line in the sand. On rollout morning, Noor set up a live feed. Jess taped hand-lettered posters by the lifts. People paused, read, smiled, kept moving. I stood by the kitchen, pouring tea for anyone whose hands were shaking. It felt like an unglamorous holiday, practical, necessary, quietly joyful. At noon, the CEO texted, "Nice work." 2 minutes later, a second text. "Proud of what you built." I screenshotted neither. I just breathed and kept pouring tea. That evening, after the building emptied, I opened my office window and listened to the buses groan and the sirens fade. The city sounded like a factory making second chances. I pulled Maya's notebook from the drawer one last time, not to read it, not to remember, just to decide. I tucked it into a padded envelope, wrote an address I hadn't typed in a year, and mailed it back without a note. On the walk home, rain started thin as thread. I let it land. No sprinting, no shelter, just weather on skin. Across the street, a kid in a red scarf dragged a cardboard rocket, wheels squeaking. He waved the rocket at the sky like it might catch. I waved back, and he grinned like we'd shared a secret. Back at my flat, I lit a candle and booted my laptop. No slides, no policy drafts, just a fresh doc, blank as a doorway. Title line, "What We Keep." I started with 3 sentences. We keep our names. We keep our circles small and bright. We keep moving. Then I wrote the part 1 hadn't been ready to say. Revenge lit the match, but love kept the lights on. When I finally closed the lid, the room hummed soft, like a stage after the audience leaves. Tomorrow would bring more emails, more meetings, more people learning how to name the work they do. Good. Let it. I'd meet them where they were, with tea, with patience, with a ledger that remembered fairly. And if someone tried to steal a name again, well, sunlight was cheaper now. We'd just open the blinds. I turned off the candle, watched the smoke ribbon toward the ceiling, and felt the room settle around me like a well-earned coat. Tomorrow could roar. Tonight it could whisper. Either way, I'd keep my name, my work, and the lights. That was enough.